Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to share a little presentation so that we have something just to reflect on. But ultimately, I just want to bring you through the roadmap for this half of this year. So really, what's being released already and what we're actually going to be releasing over the next number of months. It's pretty busy. There's a lot going on. One of the unique elements of Enterprise as an ERP solution is this always getting better monthly release cycle that we have, and the ability for you to get those new releases seamlessly, literally every month, generally on a Monday morning, first thing, and take advantage of those in a very easy to consume way. It's one of the things we learned over the years having deployed other ERP systems, that these upgrades can generally be quite disruptive. And what we wanted to do within Enterprise is to ensure that we could deliver the latest functionality to you in a seamless, at no extra cost kind of way. So it's a very unique option or opportunity that we have here to be able to deliver this level of functionality. And I'm conscious always that there's so much of it coming on such a regular basis that it's sometimes hard to keep up. So this is a great opportunity for us to reflect on what's come, and for us all to plan and look at what's coming over the next few months so that you can look at your business processes, look at how you're actually running things, and see if these new features can actually make a difference. So let's start, if I can, I'm just going to share my screen and just run through the Q1 2025 roadmap. So what's important to bear in mind here is that most of this is already in development. Most of it is almost finished. Most of it is going to get released over the next number of months. So we're talking another release. We've had one in January. We've had one in February. We're going to have another one now in March. And from that, we're going to then start to plan out the releases for April, May, and June. But all of the stuff that we're going to release is currently being developed and will be released in stages over the next number of months. So let's have a little look at what that looks like. So over the last number of releases, January in particular, we had quite a number of new features. So let's just reflect on those a little bit, just in case any of those were missed. We've been doing an awful lot around the UI just to try and capture as much of the new functionality as we can in the new interface. So we've improved the UI for user settings. So that basically means it's easier to set up different users. And if you're in a multi-company environment, for you to copy those users across from one organization to another. We released a new CRM dashboard in line with the other dashboards that are there as part of the sales and purchasing functions within the application already. So you'll see that if you're using CRM to manage your leads and your opportunities. And it's very easy now to track, leads by source, pipeline value, new opportunities coming in, all of that kind of thing. We also launched serial number tracking. So in a line with our batch traceability, serial numbers are now available where you can, if you're selling products that are serial number tracked, can be tracked from beginning through to end. We have intercompany stock replication, which is a lovely feature. Bearing in mind, we've built intercompany solutions before. This one is really, really easy to use, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a quick second. So again, in a multi-company environment, being able to create the item once and to share it across all your different organizations has become much, much easier. We launched the enhanced email functionality, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The advanced multi-user stock take. So now multiple users can walk around the warehouse counting stock at the same time and feed that back to us, a user within the office who will get notification of stock takes, and then they can go in and post those changes where they might be applicable. And we brought in read-only customers and suppliers. A request from one of our customers in Singapore. I really like this idea, just so that certain users can create and manage customers and suppliers, but other users can only view those. So to give you a little look at what that how it appears within the platform. This is the new permission screen. So here's one for Sharon. I'm sure she's shown you this in the universities already. And just mention on the universities that they're now applicable for your CPD points. So if you require CPD points, you can attend the university and you can put those towards those points that you need on an annual basis. So here you can see how easy it is now to manage different users. You can copy those user settings from one organization to another, and you can just jump between those organizations much simpler. So as the settings, as the platform grows, we needed to be able to give you an easier way to manage those different users. The intercompany new stock items. So before the Christmas break, we launched intercompany stock lookup, allowing you to see items in different companies and what stock levels are in those different companies. Now we have the ability for you to create those items across those companies. So you can either do it here as you're adding an item, or you can go into a new grid. If you go into the items grid, you'll see a new column which shows you how many other companies that item has been created in. And if you click that, so remember, anywhere you see purple, don't be afraid to click it and have a little look. You'll see a new WISE panel will pop out, enabling you then to replicate that item across those other organizations. So really nice way of ensuring you've got consistent data across your different businesses. The next one is the email settings. So here you can go in and put in a name that appears at your email address. You can CC email sent. You can set an internal address that you might want to send them to. Auto create activities is a really nice feature where every time you send something out of Enterprise, it will add an activity to that transaction detailing what was sent and what was, if you use the share function, what was in the body of the email, what attachments there were and things like that. And the multiple contacts for bulk email, again, a great suggestion from a customer where you can go into the different contacts within an organization and flag them as a billing contact. And then when you use the emailing and billing tool to bulk send out your remittances or your invoices or your statements, it will go to all of those different users. So what came in February? So we released customer and supplier special prices. And this means that you can effectively enter in the price that you have agreed with a customer or supplier for a particular product, and it will save it there against that customer every time you do a transaction in the future. We launched landed costs. So now you can track the other costs associated with buying products like your duty and your freight and things like that. The header level cost centers and project codes. And project codes and cost centers give you great analysis at a line level. What we wanted to do was just to make it a bit easier. If in the event that transaction is all going to the same cost center, we'll just set it at a header level and it will apply it to the lines. But don't forget as well, you can also set those as defaults against customers and suppliers. So when you create a transaction, it will automatically default those cost centers to the transactions. And now you can also bring those cost centers into your grids. So when you're looking at your invoices, for example, and say you have to report to a government agency about where you're selling your products to, well, you could create a cost center dimension for countries or regions. And now you're going to be able to see all your invoices at a header level in the grid by one of those different dimensions. So it becomes really powerful as a reporting tool. We launched reserved invoice picking in the WMS for anybody who's selling online, where they're using reserve invoices to create the transactions. A little feature, but one that has been requested a few times, is the ability to duplicate purchase orders. So that's now available. If you go to your actions in the purchase order screen, you can duplicate POs. We launched additional file types for expenses through the browser. So if you've got PDFs or other images that you want to be able to attach, you can do that now. Default suppliers for non-stock items. Again, we had them for stock items where you're buying and selling product, but sometimes you're buying services from third parties and you want a default supplier for that. And another small request from a customer was a credit note. On the credit note grid, the account balance, we had it on invoices. So we've now launched it onto the grid for purchase invoices and also for credit notes for both customers and suppliers. So you can see those in there now if you want to go to the three dots on the grid and just bring across those columns into that grid if it's relevant to you. So the WISE panel, we launched a few of these as well. So age receivables and payables from the company's grid. So when you're looking at that company's grid in the company's module, you're able to bring in a little button that allows you to see in a WISE panel the aged transactions that are on the account. We brought in the manual cost in the WISE panel on a transaction entry. We brought in the stage history on the CRM in a WISE panel. So again, the idea is with the grids, you can actually access most of the information you want without having to go into the transaction. We enabled the ability to set default warehouses for items with no bin. And in the bank reconciliation, again, a little thing, but these are all ones we love because they are how you're using the platform, the ability to tick all on the bank reconciliation. So it selects all the transactions that you can see on the screen at that point. So just getting rid of as many ticks as we possibly can. So just to give you a little look, you can see the WMS has now been extended. There were only 6 options there before. Now you have things like bin reallocation, where you can move items from one bin to another in one click. You have the make function where you're able to make products. So we have these raw materials, we have these finished goods, and we want to make them on the WMS and track the actual quantities that went into that manufacturing process. And then the stock count, which is the advanced stock take function. And again, it's multi-user and it's updating the browser with those stock takes pending somebody approving them and posting the journal in the general ledger. So this one looks a little bit at the landed cost. So again, looking at how we make this as simple as possible. We didn't want to have to get involved in big training exercises or setup or configurations. But in essence, you just need to go into the settings and into the module settings, go into that particular section and define your different landed costs. So if it's duty or freight or insurance, you can create all of those. And then you can put in the value. And then you can decide whether you want to automatically spread that by value or by quantity across the transaction, or do you want to manually apply it to each different line? And once you do that, it will amend the value of the item in your balance sheet, but it will also post the costs into general ledger codes as you've defined within the settings. And now you're able to manage your landed costs much better and actually do it to track your margins much easier. Remember, it needs to be done at the point of goods receipt. You can't do it after you do an invoice because we've already applied the invoice at that stage. So it's important that you do it at this stage where possible, or at least put in your best estimate of what those costs are going to be. The next one, as I mentioned, is just the ability to duplicate a purchase order. The next one is the header cost centers. Again, you'll see that button has appeared on all of the different transactions. If you set those defaults within the customer, and it's the way we use Enterprise, you'll see that it will automatically apply them to all the different lines and to the header. And then you can also go in and modify those if you want to by editing them at a line level. If there's one particular line that might be a little different from the overall transaction. Then we also have the saving prices and discounts. Again, I wanted to make this as simple as possible. So when you're in a transaction, you just go in and go save prices. It looks at all of the items that are on that transaction and you can tick which ones you want to save as a special price. So once you've done that, it'll save them against the customer or the supplier. And you can go into the company screen or into the item screen and see what those special prices are in a grid per customer. And you can modify them or clear them if you want to at any stage. But it's a really, really simple way of doing it, because what we were very conscious of is that sometimes where people are out negotiating, your salespeople are out negotiating special prices, they wanted to save them, but we want somebody to review them back in the office before they're actually saved against the customer record. But it's a really nice feature. You can do this by price, or you can do it based on a set discount against a particular item as well, or against a price list. So again, you can set all of these, and every time you run a transaction, it'll just pull that information through for you as well. So that's a little look at what came out in January, February. A lot of new functionality, a lot of stuff, maybe potentially a little bit of work to do in terms of mastering your data and setting up your data, but it does give you a lot of flexibility in terms of pricing, in terms of your margin analysis, and lots of other areas in terms of data analysis and things like that within the platform. So very excited about those releases. And yesterday was the latest release on Monday. So, all of that I've just shown you there is available for you to click and have a little look around and see how you might take advantage of those. So let's have a little look at what's coming over the next few months, but specifically, let's have a little look at what's coming in March. And it's our ambition in mid-March to get this release out. So there's a number of different features that are coming here. So one of them here is the new UI for CRM and service. So this is something that we've been working on for quite some time. but it is part of the overall user interface and user experience update to the platform, where we're leveraging more of the WISE panels and we're leveraging more of these panes that you see across the system. So those white blocks that you see within the UI are these new panes that allow us to eventually enable you to configure the user interface a little bit more by hiding and showing those panes. So it's working the user interface in a scrolling mechanism rather than having things hidden away in different tabs and in different areas. So it's genuinely meant to be more visible and much easier for you to take advantage of. So that's a little look at how the leads look in the CRM. And again, looking at the service, we can see the same here. So within service, we have, for example, highlighted if you look across the top, highlighted the status of the call, the urgency of the call, the customer details, the subject. We can see when the call was opened and when it's going to be closed. This is the same sort of trend that we're having across all transactions. We have the share function that you've seen within the sales transactions and now brought to service calls as well. And one of the nice little features we brought in across all the UI that we're releasing over the next couple of months is the ability to create a new transaction from the review screen. So rather than having to go out and come back in again. Again, just trying to look at how everybody's using the platform and to minimize the amount of clicks and the amount of buttons that you have to press to navigate around the application. So on top of that, we're also launching it from the grids, a new header update. So you'll see where the transaction number is, a new icon that will appear beside those buttons. And that new icon is designed to enable you to open the full transaction. But if you click on the number, a WISE panel will pop out, which will enable you to update things like the remarks, the comments, the delivery date, the salesperson, the key information that's there within the header of a transaction. So if you need to do a little update on a purchase order, for example, based on when it's going to arrive, you can do all of that from the grid without having to open up the full transaction. The new share function for service calls I mentioned. There's new WISE panels for reoccurring service calls, just to make it a little bit consistent from a user interface perspective. We've built further integrations with jot forms, and this is a really powerful way of capturing information that you might need. Again, it's a tool that we use ourselves that enables us to send and retrieve information using what if scenarios, I guess. Does somebody want this or do they want that, and changing the questioning around those. So really great for service, really great for even RMAs if you want to use it for that, for people to fill in forms that you might want to capture data on. And then of course we're bringing in historical prices, which is something I can just show it to you here. As you're creating a transaction for a customer and they're querying the price maybe that you're quoting, you can just click on the unit price and it will show you every time you've ever sold it to them, the quantity you sold, the value, and if you've got access, it will show you the gross profit that was made each time. And of course, those blue icons down the right-hand side will open that transaction in another tab, so you don't have to navigate away from the transaction that you're in, and you can review that transaction to see why maybe they got 20% discount, and maybe it was because they bought something else alongside that. So again, those historical prices I think are really useful in terms of giving you a little bit more information around the price and the customer's historical engagements with you. So what's coming in April, May, and June? That's just March. So all those new user interfaces, those historical prices, we've some nice new functionality coming as well around backs for UK customers who want to be able to process their outgoing payments using the payment wizard, using backs as opposed to SEPA. So all of those are being released in March. So pretty excited about that. Quite a lot coming in the next few weeks, hot on the heels of over 30 enhancements that came in January and February. So what's coming in April, May, and June? So we have this new mobile app that we talked about in the last release that is now almost ready for probably release in April for sales, primarily for sales initially. But the whole concept is to bring all of those different apps together so that you're actually looking at expenses and service and sales and purchasing all in the one mobile solution. And that's coming with Face ID and a lot of other suggestions that customers have made along the way. We're making some improvements to the purchase scanning. I'll show you those in a quick second. We've got some more UI improvements coming, which I think are all going to be well received because it's giving you more information in a much more seamless way through a better interface. More of the intercompany is coming, so I'll give you a little idea what that looks like and the timelines. We're building an advanced production module, so that's currently in development. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. We've got some lovely accounting improvements coming based on some super feedback from our customers and our own team, as it might happen, and then some further WMS enhancements. And all of these are getting released over the next 3 months. So again, we're busy. We're not sitting back in our laurels at all. We want to deliver the best experience for you guys as we possibly can. So here's, for example, the new UI for read-only or review of transactions, I beg your pardon. So once we've created a transaction, what we wanted to do was to improve how you might interact with that transaction after it's been created. So the top pane in the transaction, for example, is pretty much telling me everything I need to know. What the number is, who the customer is, the status, the value. I can notify myself around those using the notifications widget, sharing it, actions, creating new ones. I can see what sales quotes it was linked through to. And I can also see the WMS status if I'm using our WMS. So order is currently being picked by Jane Moran, for example. And then we have the timeline bar, which is becoming more, is appearing more across all the different transactions, which is just giving a little idea that this was created 15 days ago and it's due for delivery in 3 days. So at a glance, you can see the status of the transaction. And again, more WISE panels and more opportunities for us to extend what you're going to be able to do within these particular transactions. So that's how the UI is going to continue to evolve over the next little while. And it enables us then to give you the opportunity to customize those screens. And also when a sales order, and I'm always talking about this, when a sales order has a different life, right? Because the sales order is effectively a story, and it's a story of when somebody placed an order with you through to when it actually got delivered and done. But a sales order can contain stock items, service items, projects, bill of materials, and all of those can belong within one transaction. And what we want to do is to enhance this further so that you've got greater visibility of where that order is, where it's going, what has to be done with it. Like, do we have to do a back-to-back order? Do we have to produce this item? Do we have to deliver it using our van delivery app? All of those different aspects are all part of what we want to do within the sales order. So that's where this UI is coming. It's not just about making it look pretty. It's actually trying to make it a lot more functional. And then when we look at our invoice scanning, we got some feedback where we want to be able to see the invoice as we're processing it. So there's lots of different ways everybody processes a purchase invoice. So some of them are stock related, which is fine, and it will match or it will learn as you're teaching it. The other way is for us just to clear the lines and actually, I want to just post this directly to general ledger codes. Simple as that. And we can use service items within the platform to enable you to select defaults around those. So you can create, different categories that you could add to that purchase invoice that represent what's on the transaction, just in case you want to actually post them in a different way. And then, of course, you have the ability to set defaults against the supplier, which allows you to say, right, whenever I get my ESB bill in, always post it to my electricity account. So that's a nice little feature in there that we're extending. And we just want to make this as easy and as simple as possible for users to process these transactions. Because not only is this about matching and processing, but it's about storing and saving the information so that it can be retrieved much, much easier. And that lovely feature of being able to email those invoices directly to Enterpryze means you have a nice queued up system where you can go in and manage those transactions. And that will form the basis for our invoice approvals as well. So we're going to bring in templated invoices that can be matched against particular suppliers, service items to support posting. So if you go and say, this is where I post this transaction to, now save that every time in the future, it will use those service items as a template in all future transactions. And then invoice approvals, where a user can go in and manage the transaction, edit it, set it up as it needs to be posted, and then send it off for somebody to come in and approve. And based on whether they're the owner of the transaction, whether they're the owner of the supplier, or based on values, it will send out emails asking them to come in and approve those transactions. So that's all work in progress at the moment and should be released over the next number of months. As I mentioned before, the intercompany solution is really great. You know, we have an intercompany solution, but again, all of these things traditionally have been very complicated and difficult to set up. So what we have here within this intercompany is a self-service model, right? So it knows what companies you're actually authorized to be part of, which ones you're actually in. And so long as you're the admin, you can come in here and you can tick on to allow stock lookup. So all your users can now see what's available in different companies and different warehouses. Don't forget you can hide warehouses from users within Enterprise as well. So if there's a certain subset of a sales team within an organization that you don't want to see particular stock in a particular warehouse, you can actually hide all of that as well. You can turn on the item replication, and then you can either auto create the item group, or you can have a default item group that those items are created into. So again, there's little tool tips on the right-hand side to help you get all of that set up. And once it's set up, as you're either in the items grid, and I mentioned this before, you'll see the intercompany column there. It's very small, and I'm sorry about that, but just underneath the batch and serial number button, if you tick that, you'll see a 0 or a 1 or a 2, and that's telling you what companies this product's been created in. So you can come in here and tick the other companies and just simply create that product in those other organizations. That's if you haven't done it at the point of creation. And then the stock availability allows you, when you're in a transaction, when you click on the item quantity, it will bring up the quantity within that organization. But if you click on intercompany and select the company you want to look at, it will show you what's in stock in those other businesses. There's no setup required. There's no training really required. You just turn it on and away you go. And that, in my mind, is quite unique. And that's one of the reasons why we're able to deliver Enterprise at a fraction of the amount of time that it takes other ERP solutions to do what we're doing. So that's intercompany. And what we're going to build out now, and what's currently in development, is this new settings that you're seeing in front of you here. And what that allows you to do within a customer is to say, in this organization, my customer or supplier is this customer or supplier in the other organization. And these are the transactions that I'm going to match from one to the other. So that's how you manage your stock intercompany transactions. But to make service ones even easier, basically when you're in doing an invoice and you've created the invoice, because it knows that this is an intercompany account, the WISE panel will pop out. You'll see the target GL code, and you can choose any of the GL codes in that target company that you want to post this through to. So even if your GLs are different, it's going to post it into that GL account code. And you can set the dimensions for the transaction in the target company and the project code as well if you want to. So there's no major setup here. You're not restricted after setup to having to do things in a particular way. You're literally just creating the transaction and then getting the choice to actually decide where you're going to post that to in the other company. So really, really slick, really simple. And again, you don't need us to come along and show you how to do it. Sharon will, of course, in the university, show you how all of this can get set up in more detail. But it's coming, and it's coming pretty soon. I would suggest in May, we'll see the service transactions, and hopefully in June, then the stock transactions will flow after that. Production. So we want to go a little bit further. And of course, we do an awful lot in production already. You can do and manage production from your sales order today. But what we want to do is to give everybody the opportunity to create production orders. So there's a new production order module being developed at the moment. And you have the ability in there to line up production orders, if you like, in the traditional sense. So yes, we still have all of the functionality where you can make on the WMS. You will soon be able to capture the actual time during the WMS on a make function. So you're actually capturing all of your actual costs, because you can capture the variance of product as well as time. But we want to bring in the production orders. We want to create the ability for you to plan those production orders. Again, you can do all of this with sales orders at the moment, but there's been a sort of a request for them to be separated out. We're going to enhance our item reordering or MRP solution to create production orders based on minimum stock levels as well. We're going to release routing to the WMS. So when you're doing a production order, you can assign it to a route and it appears on a handheld for a user to start that production process, as well as go and pick the raw materials that they require for that particular job. So it'll give them a pick for them to go and do that. And then the back-to-back sales order to production orders, as I mentioned before. So that's all in production at the moment. And you're going to see that released in stages. So you're going to see the module being created first, and then we're going to start to release out production orders, the grid relation to production orders, the MRP tool, the back-to-back transactions, and more over time. So very excited about that. So that's coming. And again, it's got this lovely new UI that we've been building for the other transactions as part of that plan. WMS enhancements. So you've seen a number of those happening already, but what's coming next is the capture actual time on production orders, zone picking and packing. So for those of us with well, I don't have any, but for those of you who have very large warehouses, you can actually break sales orders down and go and pick them by zone and bring them back, pack them, and then ship them to the customer. That's not for everybody, but in certain instances, it makes a lot of sense. Quantities per bin, it's a big request that we've had, something that we've been working through on a design perspective, because there are complexities around doing that. And we've seen these challenges before in other WMS solutions. So we've really been putting an awful lot of thought into how this would work in a way that isn't going to impact or create an extra overhead for you in the management of your stock in the warehouse. Stock transfer requests. So, maybe you're in retail and you've got a store and you want to request the movement of stock from the general warehouse to you, and then it becomes a two-step process. So that's coming as well. The raw material pick for production, I mentioned before. UI improvements. This is getting to be a pretty big and comprehensive solution on a handheld device, and we want to make sure that the experience for those users is as easy as possible. So we will refactor the user interface slightly, just to make it a little bit more finger ready and also a little bit more wizard based, so that the user is guided through the process rather than sort of having lots of options available to them in one screen. And then warehouse replenishment of min stock. So for those of you who have pick face locations and bulk locations, when the pick face location, which is effectively a bin within a particular warehouse, is running low, it will alert the user to do a stock transfer and move the stock down from that replenishment to the pick face. So all that is currently planned across the next number of months and will be released in line with our different release cycles of Enterprise. The next one, just to give you a little look at, and we talked about this the last time, and it is really advancing now at quite a pace, is the Excel reporter tool. And once we see the value in the grids and the ability to build your own queries in your own grids and export that to Excel, what we really wanted to do was to build a reporting tool that could be dynamic with the data in Enterprise. So here you can see you're going to be able to log into, you can see the little button in the top right-hand corner. You'll be able to log into Enterprise Excel Reporter, put in your credentials for Enterprise, and from there, it's going to connect you directly into the Enterprise platform. If you've got multiple companies, you can choose which company you actually want to report from, and then choose what object you need to report. So do you want to report on your customers, your sales leads, your sales quotes, your sales orders, and things like that? And what that's going to then do is effectively bring that data within a date range back into Excel, just like you can see it right now. And then off of that, you can create new tabs to do further analysis of that data. So whether you want to graph it, whether you want to build pivot tables, whatever it might be, you're going to be able to do that. And then simply save that Excel workbook and go back and refresh that data for a different date range. So the objects that we are working through at the moment are leads, customers, suppliers, all the sales transactions, and journals. And we're also working in the concept of building out templated P&Ls and balance sheets in Excel to get you started on the journey to building out what might be a management report back that you can actually pull in from Enterprise dynamically by simply changing the date range. So we'd expect to see the first release of this to a select number of customers who expressed an interest. And please, if you've any interest in being part of a pilot program around this, let us know in April. So again, something that I think is going to be really, really interesting and exciting. So again, I'm just showing you there how it refreshes the data quite simply. And then last but not least, and I think we're flying through this quite nicely, is the mobile app. And again, we talked a little bit about this earlier. The ability to bring everything into one app makes an awful lot of sense because of the interoperability and I guess how everything sort of works together, whether it's a service call creating an order, whether it's a delivery and capturing a signature and doing returns and all of those different functions, all of those different things happening through the mobile app. So that's something that will release in phases. So you'll see, first of all, the sales module coming through. And again, we're trying to replicate almost everything that's in the sales module in here. So the WISE panels that you've seen that pop out when you're adding a line, for example, you'll see that they'll be able to do multi-dimensional stock, which is length by width. You're going to see that they're able to do service-based items, stock-based items, because all of those WISE panels are designed to work with the item type that you're actually entering into the system. So for example, based on your stock pricing methodology, based on it being a stock item, the WISE panel has certain options. Based on it being a manufactured item, it has certain options. Based on it being a service item, it has particular options. So the only thing I didn't get to show you is some of the enhancements that are coming around the accounting module. And we've taken some great feedback around that. So, things like more fields within the column chooser on the company reconciliation, better drill down functionality around the age debt, the age receivables, and the P&L drill down so that you can navigate much easier around the platform. Just a refresh of the UI so that the date filters are remembered every time you go back in. So if you've run your P&L for a particular month and then you have to jump off and make an adjustment and come back and run it, it's going to save those dates for the next time. These little things that make a difference in the day-to-day operations of your business. So a lot of those sort of things are coming over the next number of months. And we're really excited about getting those live as quickly as we can, obviously in a safe and well-tested environment. So it does tend to take a little bit longer sometimes, especially if they're complex changes for us to get those out. But we're always keen to get these new releases out to you, as I said, on a monthly basis, seamlessly with no disruption to you and your organization. So again, one of the things, as I'd sort of draw to a bit of a close and maybe give you a bit of an extended lunch break, one of the things then that we'd like to encourage you to do, because so many, and I think so many of you on the call today, and it's great to see so many here from all of our different markets, and thanks to everybody in Southeast Asia for staying up so late, and for those in the Americas for getting up early. But we love the feedback. And I think so many of you who are on the call today have actually helped us with that feedback. And it's where we deliver value back for your input into the platform. Excuse me. So please, if you've got any enhancement requests, there's a webpage, enterprise.com/enhancement requests, and that goes directly to the product team. And if we can, we'll respond within 48 hours around the idea. And whether we can accept it or not, because there may be technical or fiscal potentially reasons why we can't do things, but we will always come back and let you know if it's a runner or not. And I know so many of you on the call today will see some of the suggestions that you've made before, and we really do say thank you for that, and thanks for helping Enterprise, as we say, always get better. So without further ado, please tune into the university. The next release will be in March with those enhancements I mentioned. So the new UI for CRM and service, the new BACS file functionality for the UK banks, and some other enhancements as well. And there's always little things in there that I haven't mentioned that you should have a little look at. So if you see purple, have a little click and see what it does. There's been other enhancements to things like the payment wizard around cost centers and being able to filter suppliers around cost centers. There's literally so many. It's very hard for me just to remember them all. But today is as much about giving you a flavor as to what's coming but also just to reinforce that community, that concept that we're all working together to better the solution. And those suggestions are really, really valued here and really important to us in what we're doing every day. So again, encourage you to go to enterprise.com forward slash enhancement request. And my last ask is that there's a little survey at the end of this webinar. And if you could complete that for us, it would be really great, because that will give us some idea as to whether we're on the right track and what to prioritize and where to go forward from there. So I will suggest that we have another one of these sessions in May or June, so we can sort of plot out what we're going to be doing across the second half of the year. Some pretty exciting stuff around the implementation of AI, just to make everybody's life a little better reporting tools, and of course all of those general ideas that you guys bring on a regular basis that help us on our mission to provide, you know, what we call effortless ERP. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon.